Hello everybody and welcome to Lagoro City, a zoo highly inspired by Mexican architecture and revolves around the new America's Animal Pack. With a new pack comes a new zoo, and this zoo was a really fun project, or at least the first enclosure was a really fun project because it's a new theme that I'm delving into. Well, it's not completely new. I've done South American architecture before, but this specifically was I was trying to do some really new themes with really trying to make it look Mexican, and I really enjoyed that. This entrance is a simple entrance that looks like it's from some Mexican city entrance, like those, or a village or a town or whatever. I've never been to Mexico, so I don't know anything about Mexican architecture except for just the images. But it was a really fun and creative venture to go into these sort of Mexican inspired buildings. This is just my interpretation, right? And right behind the entrance is a nice gazebo. Once again, Mexican inspiration with a nice ornament on top, and using the same colors as the entrance, that nice bright, warm, browny orange. Of course, to welcome the guests, we add a nice entrance sign, Lagoro City, which actually means Lago, I think, is Spanish for lake, and Oro means gold. I put it in Google Translate. You're probably asking yourself, wait, a city has buildings, right? And you might be right, because this city also has buildings. Do you think it's a coincidence? No, actually, I think 100% of all cities tend to have buildings, and this city in particular has highly themed Mexican buildings. And what makes a building Mexican is just bright colors and a lot of plants. Or at least that's what I define as a Mexican building, because I really enjoyed doing this. Like I said, I've never been to Mexico, but I really just enjoy this theme. If it isn't an actual real architectural style, then I guess it's just my own creative interpretation of it. But I'm really enjoying just all these bright colors, just a load of lush plants literally everywhere, and a perfect facade for a zoo. Because they're not real buildings. They're just a facade, of course, for the guests to make them feel like they're actually in Mexico. Now, of course, this is a zoo, as I said, so it needs an enclosure, and the first enclosure we will be having here is an Ocelot enclosure. It's on the smaller side, but, well, the game says it's on the smaller side. I think it's big enough. Well, maybe it's a bit too small, but I think it looks really nice, and I think that's the most important thing for me. It's right behind the Main Street facade, and it will be surrounded by more buildings as well to really give it the feeling that it's enclosed inside of, well, a Mexican town. And the backdrop of this enclosure has a nice wall face, which not only functions as a way to hide the plain wall, but it also creates a nice climbing platform, a nice climbing area for the ocelots, because ocelots are actually arboreal animals. And if you don't know already, the ocelots are one of the new animals of the American Animal Pack. I think it's quite an okay pack. It has a nice roster of animals. My favorite is probably the Rhea, because I love my birds, I love my ratites, and the Rhea is one of the last ratites that still wasn't represented. Now, on the right hand side of this enclosure, I'm adding this sort of waterfall feature. The waterfall feature creates a nice detail to the enclosure, but also creates maybe a little splash area for the ocelots to play in. And if that wasn't enough, I'm actually adding a splash area for the ocelots in the form of a little pond. So yeah, I'm not sure if they do enjoy swimming that much, but I guess. Now, I said ocelots are arboreal, and arboreal they are, so I'm adding climbing areas as well. Mainly this massive log in the center of the enclosure. Later on, I'll add some trees, some other plants that are climbable so that they can climb up and over stuff. It also allows the ocelot to climb on top of the stone backdrop that I built. Now, before we add plants, we're adding mulch around the enclosure, adding some realism, I guess, but also just adding some extra textures. The mulch has this nice darker brown, which nicely contrasts with the arid colours of the rest of the enclosure, because ocelots are actually tropical animals despite the more arid theme I've gone with. The reason I've gone with this arid theme is because we are in Mexico after all, and well, Mexico is tropical, but to create this real Mexican feeling, I guess, because as I said, I'm going for the real stereotypes. I think it's the aridness that really does it for me. So I'm making this enclosure more arid, but still incorporating these tropical aspects to not only represent the different climates of Mexico, but also to represent the natural habitat of the ocelots. So that's why I'm adding a lot of those tropical plants, but then as you can see, I'm also adding a lot of these grasses on the mulch to create this more arid feeling. It's a fancy way of saying I'm using a lot of different plants. I'm sounding like a professional, but trust me, I'm not. I'm just adding plants, to be honest. For the forest floor, I'm adding grasses. Well, I'm saying a forest floor, it's just an enclosure. And forest floors usually don't have grasses, but once again, I would imagine this enclosure to be a forest, and this would be like a nice open patch of a forest, which then usually has a lot of grasses, and a pop of colour with some flowers. Next, we have this wall, which is actually going to have the main function of being a connection point for the aviary. Yes, you heard me correctly, this is going to become an aviary, and obviously it needs a connection point, but also it has this cool ornament sort of shape that feels Mexican. It's actually from the India pack, oh not the India pack, the Indian theme, and I'm using a lot of Indian themes throughout this entire zoo, throughout this entire build. Also a lot of African pieces for the mud, just base plaster pieces as well, and a lot of European pieces, because after all, a lot of the Americas, a lot of the architecture is inspired by European architecture. For the aviary, first there were these two large support beams to hold the aviary up, but later decided on just using the singular beam. This aviary design in particular was mainly inspired by a fellow content creator, Sparrow, who made a beautiful aviary design when she made an aviary for her lynx enclosure, I think in one of her more recent builds, although it's quite a while ago since I've watched it, so it's not that recent anymore. But yeah, beautiful aviary design, and it's a really clever way to make a sort of mock aviary just using rope, giving it the illusion that it's an actual aviary whilst actually just being rope. So as I said, the backdrop will have a lot of buildings as well, and I'm surrounding the enclosure with a lot of buildings, but I'm using a lot of the same pieces, but not only that, but using a lot of the same designs, simply because it's resource efficient and it's time efficient. And you have to think that if you would have to build every single building as a unique building, it would take a long time. I'm sure people have done it, some crazy people have done it, but it's really resource efficient and just mainly time efficient to just reuse the same designs. And it also makes it so that the entire build is cohesive, or at least that's what I tell myself as an excuse to reuse buildings. No, but jokes aside, it's actually a really clever way of making your build look cohesive and then also saving a lot of time. Not everything is buildings, of course. I'm making this smaller, just wall area, just a walled off bit to make it not too cluttered. Once again, that's what I tell myself. In reality, I just didn't feel like building yet another building, so there's that, I guess. And some more detailing on the back of the building, trimming it off, adding windows, but then my favourite part is, the very best, is more plants. Because I love plants. Plants can make a build look really nice. It's a really easy and simple way to add detail to your build, but it's also a very clever way to perhaps make the sides of your build that are less detailed more filled up. Maybe some walls that are just plain walls. And if you run out of space for plants, add plant pots for plants so you can have more plants. That was a lot of plants in one sentence, but yeah, I added plant pots. Once again, it's reusing some design techniques from the previous bit of this video. But as I said, it's cohesive and it's simple, and it allows me to add more plants, so I'm not complaining at that as well. I'm really trying to get this cactus in. As you can see, I just can't seem to incorporate a cactus. Eventually I do. The last plant pot eventually gets a nice spot for my beloved cactus. So yeah, and it was then that I realized that, wait a minute, cacti feel very Mexican actually. So I started plopping down cacti everywhere around the build. Is it cacti or cactuses? I think it's cacti, right? Yeah. Anyway, outside of cacti, I'm adding, guess what? Even more plants. Crazy. This time some purple ones and some green ones. Because I forgot what the names are. Purple plants and green plants, those are my favourite two types of plants. I should probably know what they're called, but I forgot. To invite the guests, I'm building this nice sign so that people know where to go, that there's actually a nice ocelot enclosure hidden behind the buildings. Next, I flipped the entirety of my main street, because it's actually an easy and simple way to build a lot of buildings without having to build a lot of buildings. So basically, you just copy the entire thing and you just edit some stuff here and there. You add some different roofs, you made the facades a bit different, and most importantly, you recolor all the buildings. Especially in this theme, the best thing you can do is recolor all the buildings so it just feels completely different. And next I thought, you know what, the guests deserve to eat something as well, because it's a main street after all. So I added the Mexilente, because, you know, Mexico, and also a pipshot juice, which took too many takes than I'd like to admit. And the pipshot, and the pipshot, and the pipshot juice. Oh my god. And also a pipshot juice, and also a pipshot juice. Now the entire reason I actually decided on building this zoo is because of these flags. I've seen these flags in so many pictures of like Mexican roads and streets with these flags hanging literally everywhere. And when I saw these announced, I thought, I am going to build a Mexican style zoo with these flags literally everywhere. And guess what? That's what I did. And it actually worked out really well. I'm really proud. And that's basically it for this build. So I hope you enjoyed it. Here we are in Lagoro City. So yeah, this is the entire build so far. It's, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm really proud of this. I even added the Mexican flag, if you remember, if you've seen my video on the North American flags. I built it in that video and I integrated it in this build. And we have our infamous pipshot juice, which I can pronounce now, and Mexilente. Let's just nip over to the entrance really quickly. Obviously the entrance is a big work in progress, there's lots to be done here, but I just wanted to show you the actual front of the building. I closed the zoo for now because there were too many guests. But yeah, so this is the entrance archway, very cool, I must admit myself. The coyotes on top of the archway. But, you know, we're here for the animals, so let's look at the animals. Have a last good look at these buildings, you know, really take it in, all the little details and stuff, very cool. It's not as big as for some reason in my head it feels like a really big street from above, but from down here it's actually quite small and cozy, but I like that as well, it's really nice. And then here it is, the enclosure to our ocelots. Now, knowing ocelots and cats in general, they're very elusive, so the chance that we'll see any is quite small from this point of view, but we can look around and we can see that there's so much going on everywhere, right? So there's, I mean, we have the mock aviary, once again, great design by, or at least the first time I saw it was by Sparrow. But then the buildings in the back, which is what which is where I'm mostly drawn to, because it's so luscious. And oh, I think I hear an ocelot. I was mainly just saying stuff so that the ocelot would come out, and here she is. Or he, actually. Oh, and now he teleported there. So yeah, that's the Ocelot, and as I said, they can climb all over this little area. And I mean, sure, it is a little area, but if you look at the size of the Ocelot, I would argue that this is big enough. If you could imagine that they would climb all over, then I would imagine it's big enough. Oh yeah, and then the tropical trees, I eventually ended up going for this one that they can actually interact with. But yeah, that's basically the entire enclosure. Oh yeah, and the plant pots. That's the entire enclosure and the build done. I hope I'll continue on this too. I hope you guys and girls really enjoy this, because if you do, then you'd have to force me, tell me that I have to start on the next episode as well, because otherwise I'll get lost in mostly schoolwork, to be honest. University is mostly what's keeping me from not uploading. But yeah, enough yapping. I hope you really enjoyed this speed build, and I'll see you again in another episode. Bye bye.